Okay.
I wanted to get things set up, and then I'm going to leave the room so that they can be in charge of this interview with you today.
Okay.
The volume that I'm speaking right now, can you hear what I'm saying? Everything's clear on your end?
Yes, I can. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Do you guys need anything else? All right. You may just want to do, starting with Owen, just some informal introductions. This is Mr. Tate. So, Owen.
I'm Owen.
I'm Bree.
Which one's Owen? Sorry, I can't see.
I am.
Okay. Hi, Owen. I'm Nate.
I'm Bree.
Hi, Bree.
I'm Judah. I'm Emily.
How are you doing?
I'm Emily.
Hi, Emily.
I'm Claire.
I think that was Claire.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Claire. How are you?
I'm Angel.
This person I can't see, but hi, Angel.
Oh my goodness.
Josh.
I'm Josh.
Hi, Josh. Once again, can't see you, but I hear you. So.
Hi.
Okay, so we're going to give you a summary of our book. So, we're reading the book Dear Martin by Nick Stone, and it's about a 17-year-old boy named Justice is arrested based on assumption by a cop named Officer Costello. Later on in the book, an incident happens that causes a lot of debate. A white male police officer, which was off duty, was yelling at two young African Americans about their music being too loud. The male officer was also yelling racial slurs and hateful comments. Manny, the driver of the car, wasn't going to turn the music down because it is his car and he doesn't have to. Manny's friend Justice went to turn the music down, and the officer thought that Justice was reaching for a gun, and the cop ended up shooting the two young boys. Manny did not survive the shooting. In the trial for Manny and Justice's case, they were questioning Justice on his criminal record, where he was supposed to be that day, and they were talking about the music being too loud and how it was violating a violation.
Okay.
Our first question is, since Garrett Tyson was a police officer, would it be more difficult to find him guilty because of his job?
Okay, can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Since Garrett Tyson was a police officer, would it be more difficult to find him guilty because of his job?
Are you asking from my perspective as a criminal defense attorney, or just as my perspective as to whether I think it's more difficult to find officers guilty just in general?
Public attorney.
Okay. Well, I feel that when officers are in a courtroom, they're given a certain level of credibility just solely based on the uniform that they have on. So I think that's what kind of leads to it being difficult for people to find police officers guilty of crimes. There's a certain level of appreciation, just the nature of the work that they do, the difficulty of the job that they have. However, I do believe that officers are held to a different standard than those who are just general citizens like you and I.
Okay. So, in Dear Martin, police officer Tyson kills Justice's friend Manny. What would the real-life process look like for Officer Tyson in connection to the judicial system?
So typically when one is accused of a crime, the first thing that usually occurs is that they're arrested. Once you're arrested, you're taken down to the police station for processing, booking, and you're either given your release there where you can post a monetary amount, so what's called a bond, or they will bring you before a judge for the judge to set your bond. Now, typically in situations where, say for instance, using murder, which is a felony charge, the judge is the one who sets the bond rather than the police officers just doing it themselves. So that individual would be brought before a judge. Judge would determine what the proper bail amount is, and then either that person posts that monetary amount, or they sit in jail or custody until the either plead guilty or until there's a trial. How in depth do you want me to go into how felonies work?
I mean, that's good. That's good, I guess.
Okay, because there's a lot that goes into it. I don't know how much about the actual process you want to know, especially depending on felony charges or not. But essentially, someone's arrested, they're taken before a judge sets a bail, then they either decide whether they want to plead guilty or have a trial, and sometimes that process can take months or it could even take years.
Okay. Our next question is, in the book Dear Martin, Officer Garrett Tyson, the off-duty cop who shot and killed Manny, the best friend of the main character Justice in our book, has a court case, but it keeps getting delayed. Would this happen in real life, and why does it happen?
As far as cases getting delayed, it is very common. It can occur for a number of reasons. One reason could be that there's still an ongoing investigation. Sometimes the cops don't fully wait until they've investigated everything before charges are brought. So throughout the trial process or the court process, there's still ongoing investigation, which means that new information comes to light. That information has to be provided to the defendant and or his attorney. And based on waiting for, sometimes DNA evidence or other physical evidence to be processed, it takes time. If you guys have ever seen TV shows like Law and Order, where everything gets done in a week or so, that's not very realistic. It is a pretty lengthy process.
The next question we had was, during the trial, the defense attorney wasn't letting Justice, a person of interest in this court case because he was in the car with Manny with Officer Tyson shot him, speak because he kept asking questions. Are these common strategies used within a trial, or is this unusual? What are the common strategies defense lawyers use when they are in court?
Well, it really all depends on a case-by-case basis. As far as strategy, your strategy is going to really be dictated or determined by what type of case it is, the facts that are present, the evidence that's present. In some situations, I personally will want to call witnesses to rebut or counter whatever the prosecution or the state's attorney is alleging or arguing. In a lot of circumstances, I may not want to call any witnesses because either those witnesses would be unfavorable to my client or our position, or it's not necessary to. So in the way the criminal system works, the burden is on the prosecutor or the state's attorney. They're the ones who have to prove everything or show everything. The defendant doesn't have to show a thing, meaning that as a defense attorney, I can sit there the entire trial and not ask a single question, and my client still could be found not guilty of the crime. Now, as a defense attorney, that might not be the best thing to do. Your client may be upset that they're paying you just to sit there and not say a word, but all the burden is on the state. So as far as strategy, there's no one size fits all. It really all depends on the facts and circumstance of the particular case. So each case, you may have a different strategy, just depending on all the circumstances surrounding everything.
Okay, our next question is, has there been any cases where you had problems agreeing with the case?
Do you mean on a fundamental level, or agree with what my clients are saying?
Clients.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously situations where there are disagreements between an attorney and their client. Sometimes the clients wish for you to argue a certain way or to ask a certain question. However, as the attorney, this is my job, this is what I'm trained to do, this is what I'm good at. So as the attorney, you're the one who controls how the trial takes place. what questions are going to be asked, what strategies used. That's the attorney's job to do. The client's responsibility is to make a determination as far as, whether they go to trial or whether they plead guilty, whether the defendant decides to testify or not. Those are decisions that the client makes as far as anything that takes place in the trial, as far as objections, as far as questions asked, as far as what witnesses are called. Those are all questions of the attorney. And sometimes there's conflict between what the defendant may believe should be done based on what they've seen on Law and Order versus what is actually allowable in the real world, based on the rules of evidence, based on codes of ethics and conduct that attorneys have to abide by. So sometimes there's conflict. Most of the time it usually does not arise to a level to where there's, all-out fights between the attorney and the defendant or anything crazy like that.
Next question is, what are some difficulties you have ran into in your profession?
Dealing with judges and police. I think some of the difficulties is that one of the biggest thing is that in dealing with judges, not all judges are the exact same. Judges, their role is to interpret what the law is, to essentially play referee in the courtroom, and to maintain decorum and order in the court. Each judge is their own individual person, meaning they have their own tendencies, they have their own likes and dislikes. So each judge you step in front of might be different. So part of my job is to learn the judge, know the judge, and know particularly what that judge likes. Another difficulty is obviously with dealing with trials, especially criminal defendants. You interact a lot with the police. Most of the witnesses that testify in these types of cases are, in fact, the police. Sometimes you have to deal with the fact that police have their own perceptions, motivations, and potential biases, and that's sometimes difficult to overcome, to where, as a police officer, in my opinion, they're supposed to remain a neutral, objective party. In reality, police are on the side of the state in most instances, which could lead to problems.
Okay. How do you feel about the police racism and violence in the news today?
I feel that it is an issue that is prevalent and one that has always been there. I just think that now, with everyone having cell phones or recording devices, it's more visible to the public, to where people for years have been complaining of this and mentioning it. And it's not even just always racism. It's sometimes to the extent of just police brutality, or the tactics that they use. I think it's just now seems more prevalent because it's more, it's seen more. I'm assuming all of you guys have cell phones or some type of devices that can be recorded. It's very easy to pull out this tiny little device that can record everything that's going on in your daily lives. I think now it's just getting more exposure, which makes it seem like it's a brand new thing, but I believe it's something that's been around for years.
Another question that we have is, how do you feel about Justice's case based on your knowledge of the book?
I feel that it's a situation that is common when it should not be. I feel that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming you all read the book. I'm not going to tell your teacher if you hadn't, but you guys know it better than I do. My takeaway was that, there's two individuals in a car, cops stopped the vehicle, and there was a gunshot, correct?
There were two young African-American boys in a car, and at a stoplight, a white cop who was off duty pulled up to them while they were playing their music too loud and started yelling racial slurs and hateful comments towards them. And then one of the young boys went to go reach, or